The Sonic franchise was used to make counterpart versions of its emblematic games for Nintendo portable consoles, like Sonic Colors for DS and Sonic Lost World for 3DS. But the 3DS also had another game that was one of my favorites on the system. I mean, Sonic Generations for 3DS. Sonic Generations for 3DS is one of my favorite alternative versions of a Sonic game ever released, and I want to recap it since everybody talks about the big version for PC and consoles, but nobody really talks about this forgotten gem of the portable consoles. The story of the 3DS version starts practically the same as its big brother, playing Green Hill Zone Act 1 as Classic Sonic, though this time the level isn't as extended as in the other version. Actually, it's exactly the same as the Genesis version. After this, the time meter absorbs Classic Sonic. Then we cut to the cutscene of Tails planning a surprise party for Sonic's birthday, but instead of having prepared the party with Sonic's other friends waiting to surprise him, in this version, Tails is the first arrived at the party, and Sonic comes by just seconds later to discover the surprise Tails was setting up for him. Tails is a bit embarrassed because he wanted to surprise Sonic on his birthday, but Sonic tells him not to worry and says that he can just run around the planet to kill time before the others arrive. But then the conversation is cut off by the time meter, who absorbs Tails and Sonic the same way as in the other version. Yeah, the start of the game is practically the same as in the console release, with the major difference being Sonic's party having just Tails there, but it's essentially the same introduction. The modern version of Green Hill Zone is completely new, and something we realize about this release is that modern levels are side-scrolling stages, just like the previous DS games in the Rush saga. That's something I honestly like, I'm not gonna lie. But compared to the frenetic levels of the console version, yeah, I can understand why some people completely forgot about this version and just played the PC one. By the way, this exact part of Green Hill Zone Act 2 has always been one of my favorites. It's pretty cool how the totem falls. Then the next cutscene is, again, exactly the same as the console version of Generations. Sonic first Tails, Classic Sonic appears, and Tails get a bit confused about the situation. The major change this time is the dialogue referencing Chemical Plant, a sound that is not in this version. Instead, Sonic and Tails reference Casino Night and Mushroom Hill Zone. From now on, the songs are different from the console version. Well, yeah, I know that technically Casino Night also appears in the console version, but that's a DLC, so it doesn't count. Casino Night Zone Act 1 with Classic Sonic is exactly the same to the version of the song from Sonic 2. Honestly, I think they just took the first act of these songs just to rush the development because the changes are minimal. But the modern act is pretty different, and in the case of Casino Night, I don't know why, but it gives me Casino Street Zone vibes. Maybe just because we're playing with more Sonic. Mushroom Hill Act 1 is the same as Act 1 of the original game. Even the giant rings are in the exact same spot as in the original game, but this time made up of many smaller rings. Something really funny about this act is the end. And no, I'm not saying that just because the level ends, because teams kept the level layout exactly the same as in the original game. The last checkpoint is probably the most used checkpoint in the entire series. Originally, this checkpoint was placed right before a mini-boss fight where you could die and respawn right there. But since they removed the mini-boss and kept the checkpoint, it feels completely useless. I mean, how on earth do you die in that situation when the gold boss is right there? The modern act is more fun, to be honest. It's a completely different act with some inspiration from the original level, but with those Rush vibes. It's frenetic, heavy on platforming, and has a 3D section at the end. Yeah, I know it's not the most epic 3D section of a Sonic game, but it looks cool. Then we have our first rival race against Classic Metal Sonic. But the one thing I've always wondered about this match, why are we racing in Casino Night Zone? I mean, okay, there's a road version of Sonic in Sonic 2 as well, but are you telling me that you didn't have the chance to make Stardust Speedway? Man, I really wonder how much budget this version actually had. Then we have the mythical cutscene of Modern Sonic and Classic Sonic mimicking each other through the giant glass, but I honestly don't know how they expected you to understand this cutscene on 3DS. Sure, they show a still picture from the console cutscene, but how was I supposed to know that it was a giant glass panel where both Sonics were looking at each other? I'm not a psychic, Beams. The classic era boss battle is Big Arms. The fight is practically identical to the original game with nothing really new, but the soundtrack? Nah guys, just listen to this masterpiece. After this, things proceed practically the same way as in the other version. Sonic and Classic Sonic meet each other, Classic Tails appears out of nowhere, and both Tails explain the situation to the respective Sonic. One thing I personally don't like after this cutscene is that Modern Sonic teaches Classic Sonic how to use the homing attack. Sure, it's a neat way to show how Classic Sonic learned this move, but now the levels feels like you are playing as two Modern Sonics, one with boost and one without. But okay, I guess I can understand this change. Oh, and I forgot to mention the special stages. These are based on the Sonic Heroes special stages, but this time they actually work well, instead of being the bug festival they were in Sonic Heroes. I honestly like them, but compared to the way of getting the Chaos Emeralds in the console version, it feels like a downgrade for me. The next era is the Dreamcast era, which only has 2 levels, Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure and Radical Highway from Sonic Adventure 2. Finally, from this point on, the classic levels are recycled from the original levels. Emerald Coast is one of my favorites. The classic version might not have anything super standout other than referencing certain locations from the original level, but the modern version kept the iconic Killer Whale sequence. But they have a problem with Radical Highway. What are we doing in a Shadow level? I mean, I don't remember Sonic being the one that stole the Chaos Emerald, right? Okay, fine, I guess it's a cool level associated with Shadow and it's fun to play here, but there's no actual narrative reason for this level to exist here. Or at least that's what I thought before Shadow Generations did the exact same thing by adding Chaos Island as a completely new level. Well, at least we can't blame everything on the time either, even the plot inconsistencies. The rival race is against Shadow, and naturally it takes place in Radical Highway. Even if this is not 100% lore accurate, it works fine for me because the intro of Sonic Adventure 2 battles features Radical Highway as the iconic place where both Hedgehogs put that signature pose. So yeah, it's not strictly accurate, but it still works. Somehow, but works. Then another Shadow-related stage appears as the Ring Kasira boss fight, the Bio-Lizard. It's essentially the same as the original fight, with the difference being that it's in 2D this time. The layout doesn't change too much, aside from that water path that took many players' lives. Still, it's funny how these Shadow levels appeared in Shadow Generations, only this time properly tied to the plot. I guess this version predicted the future. Now we are in the modern era, which consists of Water Palace and Tropical Resort from Sonic Rush and Sonic Colors respectively. Water Palace might be the best level in the game. It's frenetic, fast, and retains cool gimmicks from the original stage. Although the classic version isn't as fast as the modern one, I think both acts are practically perfect recreations. Plus, the background reminds me of Apotheos, probably because both stages are based on Mykonos. Tropical Resort doesn't change much compared to the DS version. In fact, Act 1 is practically identical to Act 1 of Sonic Colors DS, while Act 2 is more of a mix of elements from both versions. Honestly, that's not a bad design choice, but why didn't they include a Sonic Rush Adventure level? If this was meant as a tribute to the Rush games, they should have included at least one level from Sonic Rush Adventure. But well, I guess having Water Palace is good enough. The rival race for this era is against Silver, just like in the console version, but this time we don't face each other in Crystal City. Instead, we fight in... Tropical Resort? Okay, maybe that's not too crazy since Silver actually appears in Sonic Colors DS during a side quest in Sweet Mountain. So we can argue that maybe the reason is serious that they're fighting in Eggman's Interstellar Amusement Park. Yeah, I think I'm overanalyzing things for a game developing under a year. The boss battle of this era feels kinda ironic to me. We're in the modern era, which leans heavily on Dim's previous year's work, but where are we fighting a boss from Sonic Heroes? It's not bad though. In fact, I think it's the best boss out of all three eras because it feels more original. The Egg Emperor actually tries to shake things up compared to its original fight, but still, I would have preferred a battle against a boss from the Rush saga, since that would have made more sense for the team. But that's just my opinion. Then, once we pass through all the levels and collect the 7 Chaos Emeralds, we unlock the true final boss battle, the Time Eater. The conversation between both Sonics and both Eggmans is practically identical. Even the joke about changing the name from Robotnik to Eggman is exactly the same, but the boss battle itself is so much better compared to the console version. Why? The answer is pretty simple. There's no one screaming that there's a homing shot every 5 seconds. You alternate between classic Sonic and modern Sonic, just like in the console version, and yeah, modern Sonic's gameplay shifts into full 3D here, which feels pretty satisfying. It would have been weird fighting this guy entirely in 2D. After a double boost from both Sonics, we defeat the Time Eater, and our heroes head back to the party where it all started. The dialogue between the characters is the same. There's wonders where Sonic stores all his rings, and more Sonic tries to teach classic Sonic how to boost. Afterwards, both classic versions enter to a portal back to the original timeline while Sonic says goodbye, just like in the console version. After this, everyone arrives to the party, returning to the original plan of the day, celebrating Sonic's birthday. Generally, this handheld adventure was super fun. Even if it's not as exciting and frenetic as the console version, it's still one of my favorite handheld adaptations of a mainline game. It just gives you a good time, and even if it's a brief, it's a blast to play through in a single evening if you are fast enough. Maybe next time I'll talk about another handheld Sonic game, because there's another portable version with awesome details that the console games miss, like Sonic Colors on DS. So without further ado, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!